Hey, folks, welcome to another edition of the J&J Sports Express for Week 8 of the 2023 NFL season. I'm your co-host for the next half hour, Jeff Cadillac, and as always, and for the rest of the season, my co-host, JB Ellis. JB, how you doing tonight?
Good. We got a lot of exciting games to talk about. Great week last week. I don't think anybody was right consistently, except probably you, because you're one of the best in the business.
Well, I went 4-1 on the 5 games that we spoke about. San Francisco had a little bit of a meltdown on Monday night, but the other 4 games came in nicely, and I'll tell you something. This is a pretty good season so far. I'm 7-0 on Thursday nights against the spread. Looking to go 8-0, and we'll see what happens. But hopefully, Lady Luck is on my side.
Well, let's see. I mean, it was a tough week last week. It really was. A lot of favorites losing. A lot of people lost a lot of money. If you were
Well, the
following along with us, you would have done
dog,
well.
dogs went 9-4 last week. There was only 13 games. It was 9-4. Couple of games. If Cleveland would have gone for that 2-point conversion and scored, I had Cleveland laying 2.5. They only won by 1. But, that's the way the ball bounces sometimes. There's certain
Listen,
games, it happens in the end. There's a lot of games that have been happening. Whoever has the ball last. I like Pittsburgh on Sunday. The Rams basically just made a lot of mistakes, and people will point to that 4th-and-1 gimme that Pittsburgh got. But Rams missed 2 field goals and an extra point. So, even if they got the ball back at that particular time of the game, at the end of the game, there's no necessarily, thing saying or rule that they were going to even score a touchdown. I mean, scoring a touchdown may look easy in the NFL, but it's not. And there's no guarantee they were going to score a touchdown, but they honestly deserved to lose that game. They did not play a solid game. And I'm sure Matthew Stafford and the coaching staff and everybody, but I did say I like Pittsburgh, but the 2 backups for the Rams, Freeman and Henderson, they did pretty good against the Pittsburgh defense. So even though the number 1 and number 2 running backs weren't in there for the Rams, the 3 and 4 guys really came through. But anyway, enough about last week. Let's go to the first game this week. First game this week is Tampa Bay getting 8.5 at Buffalo. Your thoughts on this game, JB?
first of all, both teams are coming off bad losses. So, Buffalo's lost a couple in a row. Tampa Bay lost the division game to Atlanta. Both teams are on the wrong side of it right now. It's a matter of who wants it more here. I mean, Buffalo has not looked good this year. Playing at home, I think, is going to help them here. They've had a few bad weeks in a row. I would say about 4. They had a bad game against the Giants. They lost New England. They lost it over in London. I think this is where they get it right. But I think 8.5 is too much. Tampa's defense has played well this year. They're only giving up 17.3 points a game, which is towards the top end. The issue is Tampa Bay's offense. They're only scoring 17.2 points per game. So, but I think that their 8.5 is a lot for this. I don't see Buffalo covering, but I think Buffalo is going to win.
I kind of agree with you there. Buffalo, I talked to somebody who lives in the Buffalo area, and they told me that Buffalo is a very overrated team. And I start to tend to agree. And I actually liked New England last week with the 8.5. I mean, you can check my website, jeffcadillac.com, anytime. The games are up there, always free. I had full analysis of that game. I thought, if anything, Buffalo might win by a few points, but I loved New England was in a desperation mode, and they really took it to Buffalo. They showed the weaknesses of the defense. The defense basically is a bunch of guys just running around. I mean, Von Miller might be on the sidelines, but he isn't doing anything for this team. He's basically just getting paid to be almost like a cheerleader. That defense is pretty banged up, and they're not doing much. Tampa Bay, they have the 10th rushing defense in the NFL. Last week, they should have beat Atlanta. I love Tampa Bay at home off the bounce back. They had lost the week prior. I thought they were going to beat Atlanta. They made some mistakes. Baker Mayfield has to learn to take what the defense gives him. He cannot try to force things in. That's been his problem. He's got to revert back to where he played that game on Thursday night last year for the Rams when he came in basically learned the playbook in 3 days and beat the Raiders in a come-from-behind win on Thursday night. I was probably the only one in the world who picked the Rams that night. Everybody was picking the Raiders. But in this game, yeah, Tampa Bay plus 8.5. They're both coming off bad losses. They're both going to be fighting for this one. I would be shocked if it's a blowout by Buffalo. I don't think, they have no running game, first of all, whatsoever. If Tampa Bay puts a spotter in there and watches Josh Allen, he's going to have to throw, and eventually he's going to make a couple of mistakes. But I got to agree with you on this one. The spread is way too high. I like maybe Buffalo winning by 3 points, but I like Tampa Bay with the 8.5.
Couldn't agree with you more. I mean, Tampa Bay's defense is underrated. A lot of people don't talk about them. Everyone, was giving credit to Baker when they were doing well. Got to give a lot of credit to that defense. And Buffalo just has not been Buffalo this year, so I would take the points as well. Let's go to the next game. We got the Rams going to Jerry's World. You could start with this one.
All right. I honestly like the Rams in this game because I'll tell you why. The Cowboys, first of all, haven't impressed me one bit. Who have they beaten? They've beaten the Giants, the Jets, the Patriots, and they barely beat the Chargers on Monday night, and they almost blew that game. Dak Prescott, he is what he is. He's a fourth-round draft choice. He has problems with accuracy, and he has problems reading the defense. That's been his two problems. And when you're paying some guy $50 million a year, chances are he's not really going to need to or want to improve his game. He's not hungry enough. He really isn't. And the running game for Dallas, not really that great. Tony Pollard, he's, average at best. This team is just showing up. And their losses, believe me, they're going to get a loss. The Rams are coming off that loss, as I discussed earlier. The two guys, Henderson and Freeman, they combined for almost 130 yards rushing last week against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh does have the 30th ranked rushing defense, so that's not a surprise there. But I like the Rams in this game. I really think if the Cowboys, again, if they win this game, it'll be by 3 points. Rams are hungry off the loss against Pittsburgh. They had one they should have had. They missed the 2 field goals and an extra point. By the way, that kicker was waived after the game. They're looking at new kickers for this game. But Matthew Stafford versus Dak Prescott. I like Matthew Stafford in this thing. He knows how to read the defenses. He knows he's got to win this game. This is a must-win for the Rams, and I like the Rams plus 6.5.
Listen, I like everything you're saying, but Dallas is coming off the bye. McCarthy had an extra week to try and figure out what's wrong with this team that is one of the better teams in the NFC, where the Rams aren't. The Rams have played well all year. They should have beat Pittsburgh. That was their game to win. They just had a bad week. It happens in the NFL. Last week was a bad week for a lot of teams. But, with the extra week off, the defense on Dallas had a chance to regroup, rest a little bit, figure out what was not going right, because that's probably a top 3 defense in the NFL. The offense had horrible red zone issues all year. I'm thinking an extra week off gets everybody a little bit more healthy, a little bit more motivated. They're going to come out and they're going to win by about 9. Now, the Rams just don't impress me. They have a lot of weapons, and Stafford has actually done really well since he's been in LA. But I just don't think that they have the talent to match up with the Cowboys in this game.
Well, the Cowboys are good on paper, but they haven't beaten anybody that impresses me. Okay? The 4 teams that I mentioned that they beat, they were all losers. They got blown out by San Francisco. So, Cowboys don't impress me. They could have 3 weeks to prepare for this game. I still don't think they're even going to win the game. I think Rams are going to go in there and win the game.
Wow. You're calling the Rams win.
Yeah. So
I don't see that, but more power to you.
I think the Cowboys are paper thin. I'm telling you, and that's what's going to happen. The next game, Jags minus 2.5 at Pittsburgh. So who you liking in this game there, JB?
This is an interesting game. You have Jacksonville, who plays half their home games in London, almost. They had a nice 2-game winning streak over there against Pittsburgh, who just had a really good win against LA. This is going to be a tough game. Pittsburgh's defense, I think, is going to step up. They're at home, and I think that they're going to win as an underdog here. I take the 2.5 and enjoy a Pittsburgh win. I think their offense is just good enough to score enough points, and I think their defense keeps them in the game.
Well, I hate to disagree with you on this one, but the Jags, even when they've been totally bad, they've always played Pittsburgh very well. If you look at the history of this team, the Jags, even that year in 2017, when they went to the championship game in the AFC, they beat Pittsburgh twice, and that was a Ben Roethlisberger led team. You were talking about Pittsburgh defense. I don't know which Pittsburgh team you're talking about, because maybe it was the University of Pittsburgh, because the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is rated 30 in total defense in the NFL. They're 28th against the run and 25th against the pass. And Trevor Lawrence has probably been looking at film thinking that, hey, all he has to do is keep the ball away from TJ Watt, and this game is his. Etienne is going to be running for daylights against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a house of cards ready to fall. Again, last week against the Rams, they got very lucky. They should have lost the game. I liked Pittsburgh last week because I knew that the Rams, just weren't going to do it. I fell for it, and Pittsburgh should have lost the game, but it is what it is. And this week, Jacksonville is going to take Pittsburgh to the hole. I mean, this says, let me tell you something. I see Jacksonville winning by at least 10 points in this game because Pittsburgh, their defense is terrible. It's written right there. And Trevor Lawrence is getting better and better as the seasons progress. He has a good head coach finally behind him that he could, hang his hat. He doesn't have to worry too much. And he's got good receivers behind him. And these guys are not dropping balls. Jacksonville is really a better team than, say, the Rams or Pittsburgh. And they're going to win this game. I like them winning by 10.
There are a lot of better teams than Pittsburgh that play Pittsburgh, and they lose because Mike Tomlin is one of the top two coaches of the NFL. The other guy,
he's not on the field. He's not making the plays.
He doesn't have to be on the field. He coaches, and he coaches his guys up. That's why they're 4-2 right now.
Right, and they have the 30th ranked defense in the NFL, and it's going to show the holes this week. They got lucky this past week. I'll be the first one to admit it. And I did like Pittsburgh looking at it, on the paper. And I did get one there that was very lucky. But this week, the chickens come home to roost. It's going to be a situation where Jacksonville doesn't make a lot of mistakes like that. Okay, they've lost against Kansas City, but they beat Buffalo. They've beaten certain teams. Listen, they're making moves.
That Buffalo win doesn't really.
That was an earlier Buffalo season.
I'll explain why that game doesn't mean much to me. They were in London for 2 weeks in a row. Buffalo went in that week. So Jacksonville already knew what to expect. They knew about all the media that had to be done, all the hoopla that goes into the London games. They just did it the week before, so nothing was a surprise. Buffalo had to take the long flight over there. They had to go through that whole mess of all the hoopla with the media and get ready to play a game out of a normal circumstance. That's a big advantage.
Well, it is what it is. And that's why I like the Jags this week against Pittsburgh. You like Pittsburgh.
I think Pittsburgh continues. They show why Mike Tomlin's one of the top two coaches in the NFL. If he had Andy Reid's talent that they have in Kansas City, he'd be a Super Bowl winning coach.
You put Mahomes on any team, and they are championship caliber because he uplifts everybody around him. You think Travis Kelce would have the yards and the games that he's having if he played with somebody else? No,
of course not. But you got to also. We're talking about coaches. I'm talking about players.
Yeah, but the players play the game. You can have the best coach in the world. Belichick happens to be a very good coach, but New England doesn't have the players that seem to be buying into the system. And he's got to change a little bit. Tom Brady's not coming out of the tunnel. 35-year-old Tom Brady's better than.
The only time Belichick's ever won as a head coach was with Brady. Tomlin wins with everybody. He's never had a losing season. He won without Roethlisberger when Roethlisberger was out the whole year, and they had
championships. But getting to the championship game is a feat in itself. Belichick. Let me tell you something. He was successful in Cleveland before he got to New England, but the problem was in the last year when he was in Cleveland, they were moving to Baltimore. It was over, and the team basically tanked, and he didn't make the move to Baltimore. If you look at his record in Cleveland, he was building something there, and he didn't have a Tom Brady over there. And when he got to New England, he was building something there too. It just happened to be that, hey, Bledsoe got hurt and the savior came in. So, but anyway,
I don't know.
you like Pittsburgh. I like Jacksonville.
Definitely.
We're going to the Sunday night game here. This is an interesting game. The Bears at the Chargers. Chargers are favored by 8.5. Who do you like, JB?
I mean, the Chargers are going to win. The question is, are they going to cover? I mean, if it's a close game, the Bears can end up winning because the Chargers can't win close games because their coach is horrible. And that culture in Los Angeles is not meant to win close games. But the Bears they're not that good. I mean, they beat a Vegas team that is horrible, and they destroyed them with Badgett at quarterback. But, the Chargers are better on defense. They're better on offense. They have more talent. I mean, I don't see this being a close game.
But it doesn't show up. So you like the Chargers in this game?
Yeah, but I mean, look at who the Chargers lost to compared to who the Bears won, who the Bears beat. So how can you think that the Bears could even keep this game close with the difference in talent and the way they played this year? They've had one good game without their starter as playing when he was hurt.
So you like the Chargers in this game?
Yeah.
Okay. I happen to like the Bears in this game, and I'll tell you why. Tyson Badgett, he is doing what he has to do in his day, in what he needs to stay in the NFL. He's basically doing something. He's held his own last week. Granted, it was the Raiders. The Raiders are a poorly managed team all the way up to the owner, Bruce Davis. I think that Bruce Davis, and we'll get to the Monday night game after this, but Bruce Davis as an owner, the only good thing he has done as the Raiders owner is actually make sure that the field is grass. That's about the only thing he has done as a Raiders owner that I agree with. Everything else, he doesn't know what he's doing. Josh McDaniels is not a head coach. Anytime the Raiders, win, he fires the coach. But we'll talk about that later. Anyway, Tyson last week played a very good game. He held his own. You got the Chargers with all that talent. Here's why I don't like the Chargers in this game. They have the 32nd pass defense. The 32nd ranked pass defense in the NFL. With all these guys they have on defense, you think all they do is stand around. You got Khalil Mack. He has 1 sack in the 5 other games, besides that one game where he had 6 sacks. Okay? 1 sack in 5 games. He had one monster game, and he disappears. You got Joey Bosa on the other side, defensive end, highly paid. He's worthless too. 3 sacks in 5 games. These guys, they don't make, and in the last game, by the way, they each had 1 tackle each. 1 solo tackle. The Chargers are an overpaid, overpriced team, and they're going nowhere because they also have a head coach that they know is basically treading water right now because he's a terrible coach. He's made so many bad decisions that when he plays a good team, it's done. I mean, they looked horrible against the Chiefs last week. They had a chance, but they couldn't get anything done. I don't know who is calling the plays in Los Angeles for the Chargers, but they are just a terrible team. They have so much talent on paper. They cannot get the job done. They have so many weapons. You got Justin Herbert, who's a great quarterback. If you gave him a reasonable coach, or even let the guy call his own plays, for Christ's sakes, you would have a better team. But
you're saying a guy who completed 21 of 29 passes for 162 yards is going to light up the worst passing defense in the league? No. Because the Bears coach doesn't know how to call plays.
He's going to complement it with a running game. And the running game, Chicago uses the running game very well. They got Dante Foreman, who came over from Carolina. He's doing what he needs to do to take pressure off the quarterback. And if he gets a certain amount of yards and is able to penetrate, and Chicago is able to run their run game, at least, take some pressure off the quarterback, this will be a good game. I know the Bears Chargers is probably not what people are looking forward to see unless you're a Charger or a Bear fan, but it is what it is. But I like the Bears covering this game and maybe even the upset because the Chargers are due. The Chargers are terrible. They really are. For a team that has so much talent on paper, it is just a complete waste to watch this team. They can't score at the right times. They make all the bad decisions. Something's got to change with that team. And I like the Bears plus 8.5 in this game.
I agree with you that something's got to change. The head coach needs to go. I mean, their only wins were against the Raiders and the Vikings. The Vikings are starting to play better now, but all their losses are close losses, and they didn't lose to any teams that you would say are horrible teams. They lost to the Chiefs and the Cowboys, which are two of the top teams in the league. The Dolphins, who their offense is phenomenal, the number one offense in football, and the Titans on the road. So, I mean, they haven't had really a bad loss yet.
I wouldn't put the Cowboys as a top team in the NFL. They haven't proved anything to me. I wouldn't even put them in the top 10 right now. They haven't beaten anybody that, if they had beaten San Francisco, yeah, then maybe I would say something. But they haven't beaten anybody that, you could turn around and brag about.
Only players on your schedule. They can't beat somebody that's not on their schedule.
So beat San Francisco. Beat a team that's going places. Don't tell me about you beat the Giants 40-0 or you beat the Jets 40-8. Who cares? That's not bragging rights. But the Chargers, and Dallas beat the Chargers by 3 points. So big deal. And they almost blew that game. That game could have gone either way at the end of the game. But I like Chicago Bears in this game. If the running game gets going, Chargers, look, you drop a few passes here and there. The cornerbacks for the Chargers, the secondary for the Chargers is terrible. If Tyson Badgett really gets on a roll, I mean, you never know. You've seen quarterbacks coming out. Brock Purdy is a quarterback that came out of nowhere. And look at him. He was the last pick in the NFL. They had two quarterbacks in front of him.
Been too good.
What?
Last 2 weeks hasn't been too good.
Hey, it happens in the NFL. Nobody's great for 17 weeks. It happens. Teams go through, it's a long season. Things happen. So you like the Chargers to blow them out. I like the Bears to cover or maybe even win the game. Monday night. Let's go. Oh, here we go. The Raiders at Detroit. Detroit is favored by 8 points. Who do you like, JB?
The Lions all day. They're going to be angry after what happened last week. They were embarrassed. They gave up 28 points before they got a first down. This is their game to make everything right. They're going to go out there and beat the Raiders from start to finish. If the Raiders thought it was bad losing to the Bears the week before, they're going to get manhandled by Detroit. The Raiders are not a good team. They don't even belong in the NFL right now the way they're playing. They should go to the XFL.
Josh McDaniel, that's the coach.
And the Lions are an angry team because they got showed up after everyone was talking about how good this team is, possible Super Bowl, this, that, and the other.
I told you about the backup running backs last week. I said it's not going to happen and everything. And you were pointing, Jamar Gibbs, 4.6, running and blah, blah, blah. I loved Baltimore last week. And I said that Baltimore was going to win. And they put on a show. And it was 28-0 at halftime. Turn your sets off there because if you don't have a running back that you can rely on to at least have the defense guessing, you're in big trouble. You are in big trouble. And the Lions defense last week, what happened to them? They didn't show up.
It was just a bad game. It was the Ravens wanted to prove to the world that they're a good team. They took it them to the shed. They said, "Listen, people can talk about you guys all day, but we're the Ravens." And if I said that on a few shows that would if the Ravens going to want to come out and do that, and they actually destroyed Detroit. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting them to win. I thought Detroit would put up a little bit of a fight, but Detroit just laid down.
Detroit was non-existent. If you had a Division I football team out there, they probably would have done better. In this game, I like Detroit in a blowout. the Raiders haven't played anyone with a top 15 passing offense, and Detroit has the number 4 passing offense. This is going to be a clinic at home. This is a bounce back week for the Lions. The Raiders, basically, big deal. Obviously they got blown out by the Bears. Like I said earlier, Bruce Davis's only thing that I agree with him as an owner is having grass in the dome. They followed the Arizona Cardinals way, as they slide in the grass. They grow it outside and they slide it in for the games. That's the only thing I agree with. Otherwise, he's a terrible owner. He's one of the worst owners in the NFL. Anytime the Raiders look like they're going to start moving upwards, he fires the coach and the coaching staff is gone. The guy before this one, Josh McDaniel, hey, he actually turned the team around, got a winning percentage. Bam, he fires him. Who's before that? John Gruden, who I said wasn't even a good coach at all. I never liked John Gruden. He won a Super Bowl with Tony Dungy's team. And I said when he signed that 10-year contract with the Raiders, I said to people, and I even said when I was at the time, I think it was 2019, I said to Terry Bradshaw, I said, Terry's going to do 4 years of that contract and he's going to be gone. Well, guess what? 4 years, he was gone. I hit it right on the number. I should have been in Vegas for that one, because the Raiders, they do everything wrong. The only thing is they sell out like crazy and they travel well. And that's why they're always, that black and silver is always prevalent everywhere. The only thing they have going for them is basically they have the number 5 pass defense. And you could thank Max Crosby for that, because he's like everywhere. He's become a superstar. He's really coming to his own. But I'll tell you something, Detroit, they're going to neutralize him. They're going to do what they have to do, because the Raiders overall are a bad team. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is still questionable for this game. You got Brian Hoyer, who we all know why he's a backup, because he's terrible. And then you got the guy, I think it's Aiden O'Connell behind him. He's terrible too. So we'll see.
Wow. How are you saying a rookie's terrible?
A rookie?
Yeah, he's a rookie. He's out of Purdue from last year.
Yeah, well, the
O'Connell.
one game or so that he was in, what are you going to do? He's not proven, so you're going to throw him into the mix. The Raiders, their offensive line is terrible as well. The Raiders are just a complete mess, and Josh McDaniel doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, if people think he's this great offensive coordinator, please. You had Tom Brady as your protege, and probably Tom. Yeah, and I used to call Josh McDaniel an offensive consultant, because Tom Brady was probably calling his own plays. They'll never admit it, because that would diminish the role that Josh McDaniels was in as offensive coordinator. But you got to tell me, there was probably a time when Brady, they would send in a couple of plays and he would say, listen, this is the play we're running. Come on. Yeah. It's obvious. I mean, the guy, is proven. So Josh McDaniel is a head coach. He's terrible. He proved it in Denver, and now they bring into Vegas here, and he's terrible. And I got to agree with you on this one. Hey, Lions are pissed off. They're going to have a great game. This is one of those games where it's going to be a blowout. Maybe at halftime, you're going to go to sleep early, get some sleep for Tuesday, maybe 40-10.
Maybe worse.
Maybe 40-17. Raiders get that dummy touchdown at the end, make the score look a little closer.
I have no desire to watch either of the primetime games. Again, the NFL, one good game in primetime all year, and we're week 8 now. Great job, schedulers.
Well, it happens sometimes. That's why they got to flex them a little bit. They got to flex some of these games. I mean, if they're able to, but they have to do it in advance. But anyway, that's our show this week. And where can we find you there, JB?
JB_ the program, confidential, coming on in a half hour to discuss the World Series. Sideline Sports every Tuesday, 8:30. If you're in Atlanta, WDJY 99.1. Wednesday morning, 7 to 8, and Sundays 12 to 1.
Well, that's good. A lot of places, JB. Me this season, you can find me here right on Sideline Sports on Twitter. My best bet on Twitter at Jeff Cadillac 1. A little rough this year, but hey, if you check out my site, jeffcadillac.com, you'll find that I'm doing very well this year against the spread. I have analysis of all the games. The Thursday night game is already up there. So, and I welcome all your emails. So Have a great
And if
week
you
and bet with your head, not over it.
if you're not checking out the website, you're just fooling yourself. See you next week, guys.